He, whoops. Okay, we're recording. There you go. He knew the objects of his bounty. He understood the act that he was doing, make a will. You know what I'm saying? Go through the charge and ask those questions, because this is a lawyer who can give you a professional opinion.
Okay.
So put it in terms that the charge to the jury puts it, so the testimony matches. And that really helps your closing when you say, this is what you're asked as a, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, the court's charge, question number X requires you to answer yes if these elements are met. And you'll recall the testimony of Mr. Hanlon or Ms. Hanlon, whichever, that Nano was competent and met this test all the way through. In his professional opinion, none of that changed in summary. All right. Good job. I just given you some tweaks that I hope will make the outlines a little clearer.
Thank you.
Well, that's good. Thank you. That was great. With regard to the charges, Olivia, keep that in mind for preparing a closing statement. To clarify charges and how all of your witnesses help you do that. Okay. So, Katie, do you have any other thoughts or questions?
No.
Okay, then I'm gonna let you go if you need to.
Okay.
And then we'll let maybe Silver, are you ready to do yours? We'll stay with your team.
Give me 1 second. I'm trying to, it's
Okay.
having a hard time going onto the file. I don't know why.
Okay, I'll give you a second. Olivia, could you go over your cross questions right now?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do Olivia, then Silver, and we'll do the same process. You go ahead and go through the questions, introduce the witness you're crossing and what you're trying to accomplish, and then go through the questions, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So I'm crossing Alex. I'm trying to prove that she was like always kind of in it for the money, like being friends with him for money.
Mm-hmm.
Show that Nana was healthy. And prove that Nana was the kind of guy to change his will last minute.
Okay. And why is that important to your case?
Because she's trying to say like the money was all for her, and that he was like going crazy, and that his will wouldn't be valid if he was going crazy. But
okay. Very good. Okay, well then you go ahead with the questions.
okay.
And do you have your cross questions up there now
Me?
on the platform?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, go ahead. I'm not going to interrupt you again.
So by sophomore year, Nana was paying for both yours and his things. Yes. Later that year, you both ended up in a 3-bedroom house together. Yes. So after college, you lived in a 30-floor building called Nano Tower. Yes. And Nano spent most of his time on the top floor. Yes. So you had 29 floors to yourself most of the time. Yeah. And Nano was on the dive. And when Nano was on the dive, you took a vacation to Florida and remained there even after you found out about his death. Yeah. He even left you a very generous amount on his original will. Yes. So you and your daughter lived on the estate and have all your stuff paid for by Nano just by being his personal assistant. Yes. And That's because you're his best friend. Yes. Well, you even claim you were his only friend through college. Yes. You described him as unique, right? Yes. Even further, you mentioned you recognized he was a genius, but there's a fine line between genius and a weirdo, right? Yes. And you were the only one at MIT who recognized this? Yes. Not only that, Nano was the only person at MIT who behaved like a genius. Yes. You mentioned he was acting strangely recently. Yes. But he wasn't always like this? No. Well, you mentioned in college he had a freak out because he couldn't find a napkin, right? Yes. And you didn't think it was weird at the time? No. But recently you got worried because he took some alone time on the 30th floor? Yes. So you'd say some alone time is cause for concern, but having a full-on panic about a napkin isn't? Yes. And despite these mental health problems, Nano was able to make and maintain a billionaire status? Yes. That's all.
No further questions. Okay. Do you have thoughts, Mr. Zeiger?
A few, yes. Okay. Again, you have the handle on how to do cross. You're asking fact questions. Let me remind you that you want to end your cross on a really strong point, and I think that referring to it as mental health problems might not be where you want to end. And to say, basically, your question assumes he did have mental health problems. I think a stronger ending might be something that ties into she's in it for the money. And that is, while you now, you recognize now that if the jury finds Nano was not competent to make a will, you will come into a very generous inheritance from the previous will. True? It is in your economic best interest for the jury to decide that Nano was not competent to make a will. True? True. And if he wasn't competent to make a will, if he had these problems, then he wasn't competent to do a lot of stuff, right? You're not trying to tell the jury, are you, Alex, that the only thing he was incompetent to do is to make a will? That would be silly, right? If he can't make a will, he can't do a lot of things, right? Right. Including he wouldn't, if what you're saying is true, then you took advantage of him because he wasn't competent to put you up in the tower, to pay your expenses, to keep you as a personal assistant, to give you the salary, to you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
That ends a lot stronger than, freak out with the napkin. I mean, that's not bad. I mean, in other words, that didn't bother you. He did strange things, and that was okay. That was typical Nano until you could say, well, maybe he had problems because you can get an inheritance that you would otherwise not receive. That's the conclusion. And I would move the vacation to Florida down right at the end too with that.
Okay.
That is, you're his personal assistant. You're the one you think was his only friend. You're dealing with him. So while he's going to be incommunicado or out of touch, or at least not readily accessible in the submarine, you take a vacation. But when things go wrong, your vacation is more important than coming back. Your time away from work and enjoying yourself was more important than coming back when Nano was lost. See, that all fits this. The reason you're doing it, the reason you're saying it is so you can get the money. That's the impeachment for this lady, I think, anyway.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any questions, Olivia, before we move on?
No.
Okay, did you get everything up there, Silver? Are you good with it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, we're gonna go through the same process with you then. So first
Okay.
introduce your witness, what you're trying to accomplish, and then go through your questions.
Yeah, so I'm trying to, so the first thing I talk about is how Dr. Max Northshire said that it wouldn't be possible for there to be enough oxygen. My first kind of point is like that there would be able to. And with that, I bring in Exhibit 2. I don't really know how to do that. I talk about Exhibit 2 in my cross. And then I also talk about how Northshire is very uncontradictory with himself, which is, kind of a problem if you're a witness.
Okay, so you would want to say non-contradictory.
No. Dr. Northshire is contradictory of himself.
He is contradictory. Okay, good.
Mm.
Okay, very good. Well, why don't you go through your questions and then we'll go from there.
Okay. So I say, Dr. Northshire, you stated that there was only 40 hours of oxygen supply, and therefore Nano could have never signed the document on November 3rd. Is this true? He says yes. And yet, if I'm not mistaken, in Exhibit 2, it says the maximum of oxygen holds 40 hours for 3 advertised adults. And therefore, were there 3 men aboard the Tutu on Nano's expedition? You'd say no. If my calculations are correct, then that leaves more than 60 hours of oxygen for 2 people, because originally it was just for 3. Does this sound correct? And I don't know how it goes, if they can say yes or no. And then I talk about how he's contradictory and saying, in your testimony, you said the effects of the dwindling oxygen would have been somewhat what was that word? Sorry. Somewhat declining on the Tutu and likely unknown to Nano as it was happening. But later you said there is no clear sign. Nano was succumbing to the traumatic stress brought by the dwindling oxygen, and there's a realization that he would soon suffocate inside the Tutu. So which one would it be, in your opinion? Was Mr. D-Sign aware of the dwindling oxygen or not? And then Dr. Northshire, would you classify something as simple as balance or not falling as mental capability or physical capability? And if he says physical, and I said, then why, Dr. Northshire, did you say that these are signs of mental? Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm so confused about what I wrote.
It's all right. One question, one thing while you're saying, sometimes you're using open-ended questions, and you want to just say yes or no. Try to get them to say yes or no. So you would say, for example, that last question, you wanted him to say it's physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you would just say it was physical, correct? And then and not give him a chance to go on and start saying things that might affect your case negatively. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. This is the first time you've gone through this and you've never written cross questions, so you're doing great. Okay? So let's just finish through the questions, do the best you can, and then we'll help you from there. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So assuming that he does say that there is his physical abilities, let's say, then why did Dr. Northshire, did he say that they said, and I quote, mental status is separate and distinct from physical abilities? And then that is also an open-ended question, so I have to fix that. And I said, do you agree that his handwriting was awful even before his experience on the Tutu? He would, I would say, most likely say yes, because he was known not to write that much. And that's about where I end it. I need to work on it a bit more.
Okay. Well, that's a great start though, Silver. So I'm going to let Mr. Zeiger say anything that he thinks would be helpful, and then we'll move on from there. Okay.
Yeah, the point is well taken that the questions need to be in the form of statements. There's one in particular that I wrote down. You said, was he aware of the oxygen or not? And that gives him 2 choices. What you say is he was not. So he was not aware, or he was aware. And then And then the follow-up question, whatever the answer is, if the answer is, yeah, I agree, that's what I said, and that's true, that he was aware and he knew what was happening, or whichever answer you're looking for, if they pick one that you don't like on their response, you say, but you testified in your sworn statement, carefully drafted, read over, that you signed, and you never changed or sought to amend it or alter it. And then you point out the two inconsistent statements, and then you say, so really, what you have to tell the jury is you don't know. You're willing to say one thing and then say the opposite because you just don't know. Isn't that true? Isn't that? And it doesn't matter what he says then, because your question has shown that he is saying two different things. Mm-hmm. So when you're dealing with inconsistencies, if he doesn't choose the answer that you like, then attack with a question that you said the opposite here, and you're willing to say either side. You're willing to say two different things. Doesn't bother you that they can't both be true. You'll just say them anyway. Be strong with this guy, because you need to kick him pretty hard. Let me follow up with the 40 hours to 60 hours, 2 to 3 guys. Do the math for me. How did you come up with 60 hours?
So we have the maximum amount of oxygen. Here's the thing with me. So in the exhibit 2, it says in specifications, it says that there's maximum oxygen of 40 hours for 3 average size adults. Now I'm assuming the oxygen isn't measured in hours, and therefore there has to be enough for 3 adults for 40 hours, correct?
Right.
So I multiplied 48 by 3 to see how much was in total amount of hours. And then I divided that by 2 and I got over 60. And then I did something else with math. But in the end, if there's 48 hours for the average adults, shouldn't there be enough for 2 average adults to last over 60?
Yeah, and don't ask it that way. You had a question at the end of that, shouldn't it be? Ask it by saying, if 3 adults on average can live 40 hours, that's 40 hours for one person, 40 hours for the next person, 40 hours for the third person. That is, in people hours, 120. 3 times 40 is 120. True? Let's do the math. And then if you'd only have 2 people, that 120 hours of total oxygen lasts 60 hours for the 2 people. True? You see, you make it a statement like that. I follow your math, but I think the question needs to set it out a little better.
And then the jury needs to follow your math. So you got to be very careful to make sure you're not losing them.
Yeah, and this may be one where you go to the whiteboard and do the equation. And then average adult, is there? Remind me, is there anything in the record that Nano was, or the other dude in there was less than, was smaller? No, I know Nano had great breathing control.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, was Nano an average, or was he a bigger or smaller?
I believe he said he was average weight, or yeah, an average size.
We'll double check that.
All right. And remember, the other guy in the submarine passed away, at least according to Nano's notes, well before Nano did, which changes the calculation for Nano to have more oxygen. Whatever went wrong with the other guy, do we have an autopsy of him? I don't remember it.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, so he could have passed from heart failure. He could have had other problems that caused him to die sooner. But anyway, it frees up more oxygen. So the calculation is just wrong for the doc, whose name I don't remember.
Okay. Norshire?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Then on the handwriting, again, that was more of a give him a chance to say 1 or 2 things. You just tell him. It's not in dispute. Everyone's looked at it. His handwriting was sloppy. True. You couldn't call it pristine, true. You couldn't call it neat, true. That's just the way he was. And he was that way before he went in the submarine. He was that way in the submarine, true. All right.
Okay.
I'll look at your questions when you put them up, or since they're put up. I think there are several that I'll just highlight for you that can be changed into statements instead of giving wiggle room.
Very good. Hey, great start, Silver. Excellent job. Okay.
Thank you.
Does that help? Do you have any questions beyond what we've discussed?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. I know you guys all know this, but both sides of this should be listening to the questions so you know how to deal with those questions when your side is up. So for Sterling and Kayla should be listening closely to these, and then vice versa when we get started on the other side. So
Mr. Moon?
Nathan is not here. It's very unusual for Nathan not to contact me if something's come up and I don't know what it is.
He's at a tournament.
Huh?
He's at a tournament. He texted the group
Okay.
chat. Yeah.
Perfect. I didn't see that. So, okay, very good. Then I'll get everything taken care of with Nathan on Monday. We're good with that. So we've gone through the defendant's or the prosecution side. So let's go through the defendant side now, and I'll let Sterling start, and then I'll let Kayla go. So
Okay.
we're going to do the same thing we just did. Introduce your witness, explain why they're important, and then go through your questions, and then we'll go through it with you. Okay?
Okay. Can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
So the defense is trying to prove that Nano wasn't competent, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then the prosecution wants to prove that he was competent.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah, let me
actually
add to that.
That is defendant versus the prosecution or the state.
Okay.
Plaintiff. Yeah, it's plaintiff and defendant in this particular case, and the defendant wins if he was incompetent, or if ACE stands for Eubank, right?
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So you really have two bullets in your pistol on that.
Okay.
Either or.
Okay. I'm gonna write that down real quick.
And I think I would grade you down if you did not fire both of them.
Yeah, you gotta fire both bullets, dude. It's gonna be hard to win this without it.
You said ACE means Alex Eubanks?
Yeah, if it doesn't mean Alex Eubanks, then it causes problems for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Your number one theory is ACE is Eubanks.
Okay.
And you want to put that in. Everybody who can help you and cross, you need to get that in. And your
Okay.
number two theory is, if it doesn't mean that, the guy was out of his mind, because no way would he give money to the people that killed him.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Okay, so for my cross-examination, I will be examining Chris Leclerc. So what I want to prove here is that both of the men were able to know how to work the vessel, and it was, I'll prove that it was about 3 hours when they lost communication with the Bravo, the command ship, and then that will lead to proving that they had enough time to pull the ballasts and get above, I don't know how to say it, at the surface of the ocean,
Surface.
with enough time. Yes,
Okay.
without running out of oxygen.
Okay, great. Well, you take it from there then.
Okay. You're the managing director of the testing compliance at the Aquatic Center for Exploration, right? Yes. And you are very educated in sea exploration, true? Yes. So you know what you're talking about when you allow someone to go on a test operation, isn't that right? Yes. So you knew that the two members of the tutu would be able to make it back when they lost communication, correct? Not necessarily. So then here I would enter in Exhibit 4, which is the picture and labels of, oh no, sorry, Exhibit 2. Oh, no, I was right the first time. Exhibit 4, which is actually the text transcription log, which shows like what they were how they were talking to each other. So my next question would be the tutu left at 8:04 a.m., right? Yes. And you lost communication with them at 11:14 a.m., correct? Yes. So it was about 3 hours into the test drive when you lost, or into the test when you lost communication with the tutu, correct? Yes. So these two men were trained to know the vessel inside and out, correct? Yes. So they would know where the ballast releases were. Yes. You said that they could always release the ballasts. That's true, right? Right. And they lost communication approximately 3 hours after they started off, right? Right. And the removal of the ballasts helped the sub rise 50 meters per minute. Isn't that true? Yes. So that would take about 40 hours to come back to the ocean surface. Isn't that true? Yes. And the submersible was supplied with 46 hours of oxygen with 3 men. So they would have had plenty of extra oxygen, right? Yes. So the death of the 2 men couldn't have been your fault, correct? Correct. And you saw Nano board the submersible with a red notebook. Isn't that right? Yes, I saw him with his red notebook. And he wrote a will but changed it multiple times in the sub, correct? That is what the notebook shows. This would show his lack of deep thinking, yes? Not necessarily, but he couldn't make up his mind, right? Right. And the cause of their death was discovered to be the lack of oxygen, right? Most likely. And it's hard to think straight when you're running low on oxygen, yes? Not necessarily, but it has been scientifically proven that the brain needs oxygen to think. Is this true? Yes. So Nano was not in the right position to be able to make a valid will. Isn't that correct? Maybe. But he couldn't process his thoughts well, so he didn't even think of clarifying which ace he was talking about. Is that true? No, he didn't clarify. So yes, it's true. So Nano wasn't thinking deep or well enough to be able to make his true will, correct? He was able to think well enough to write his true will. Wait, I need to edit that, but that's okay. He was not able to make up his mind, though, correct? Yes. Therefore, Nano was not competent when he made his will. Well, I need to edit that some, but that's all I have. I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay.
And I need to break down the math steps too. But
I see the logic though, the logic that the direction that you're heading, and so good progress, really good progress. And do you have any thoughts, Mr. Zeiger?
Yeah. I like where you're going with it. This is good. How deep was the sub 3 hours after the dive?
oh, I need to put that in. It was so at 10:27, it was 1,500 meters. So it was probably about 2,000 meters.
Okay. Because that is necessary for the 50 meters per minute to come up.
Yes.
Because at 50 meters per minute, That's less than 3 hours to get up. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the rise. So they had all the oxygen in the world.
Yeah.
Where I think you're going with this, and by the way, this is a very strong closing. I like, you probably won't get all the answers you want, but I like the questions. Where you're going with this is they were trained, they knew what they were doing, they had plenty of oxygen, and apparently, not apparently, and we know for sure they did not follow through their training.
Yes, sir.
We know for sure that if they had, they would have lived.
Yes, sir.
And then while you got this guy on there, talk about how Nano talked to the whales. I mean, go through a couple of the comments he made.
Okay.
And then with that were kind of strange.
Uh-huh.
And then if he is knowing he's dying, according to the plaintiff's theory, according to your theory here, Mr. LeClaire, he knew he was dying and he made a deathbed change in his will, a decision to give everything to the company that killed him. That's your position, isn't it? That's your theory. Well, if he was thinking clearly and if he wanted to know what was happening, why would he not be focused on making sure there's no misunderstanding?
Okay.
Because it doesn't take that much more to write aquatic than A. And if he had done that, we wouldn't be here with Mr. Eubanks, would we?
Uh-huh.
But instead, what he wrote was something that we can't tell what he meant. And the reason we can't tell what he meant is because he didn't know what he was doing.
Uh-huh.
See, he's not able to put those thoughts together coherently, or he would have made sure that it said aquatic instead of ACE, what he affectionately knew were the initials of his valet. You see where I'm going with that,
Yeah.
I hope.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I don't think you changed the will multiple times in the sub. You said that you wrote a will but changed it multiple times
Okay.
before he got in. But each time he changed his will, he sat with his lawyer. He discussed it with his lawyer. He did it to prepare with his lawyer.
Okay.
And that's the way, when he was in his right mind, he handled his affairs with his lawyer. All right, that gives you some good implications on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, I did.
Okay, thank you.
Great start, Sterling. You're on the
Thank
right.
you, Mr. Broom.
Okay, good job. So do you have any questions, Sterling, before we proceed?
No, sir.
Okay, then Kayla, we're going to let you do the same thing, okay? You'll just want to introduce your witness and what you want to accomplish, and then share your questions, and then we'll go through them with you.
Okay, I think that I might need to restructure my questions because I thought that our claim was that he was competent before he was in the submarine, but not after he was in the submarine.
Which side are you? You're representing the defense?
Yes, sir.
That is one of your two claims.
Okay.
That is your backup claim.
Mm-hmm.
But your number one claim is it absolutely means Eubanks, Alex Eubanks. It does not mean aquatic exploration. That and you have to. I think you really need to structure your cross and your direct to take those 2 points. And if you abandon one of those, I think the grading in the competition will be penalizing you.
Okay.
Who are
Well,
you?
But if you got half of it, I'd love to hear what the half you have.
Okay. Well, it basically just structures that he was competent before the submarine. it doesn't talk about after the submarine because she didn't see my person didn't see him after the submarine, and she's not an expert on that.
So who are you crossing?
Terry Cloth.
And you can, what particular does Terry Cloth say that will help one or both of those sides?
Well, I mean, she says that she has no opinion on who Ace is, but she also talks about how she doesn't think that he had mental issues and how the fall wasn't super concerning.
Okay. So how does that help either of the charges?
Well, because he got good score on the MMSC and his lung pressure capacity wasn't concerning and all that stuff. And she checked him and she personally was like with him when she evaluated him. It proves that beforehand he was competent.
All right. While I've got you, can't Terry Cloth also support the idea that Nano was loyal, stay with his friends, stay with his people? I mean, stay with Terry Cloth forever, stay with the lawyer forever. That was kind of who he was.
Yeah, maybe I could put that in there.
If it's not too much of a stretch, because the follow-up conclusion of that is, so it was out of character for him to change his will to a person or to an entity that he had never indicated he was doing anything for. They'd already given him $1 million for this job, and that they killed him, and therefore be disloyal to everyone else. That would be out of character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll probably restructure some things and write some different things that support more of the claim that he would probably choose Alex because he was a friend. But I'll read you what I have now.
Yeah, I mean, what you want the jury, what you want the jury to do is say either he was incompetent, the old will stands, and therefore Alex gets money under the old will, or if he was competent, there's no way in heaven that he was going to cut out everybody else, including Alex, in order to support the company that, despite his paying them $1 million, managed to get him and the other guy there killed.
Does that make sense, Kayla?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you read what you got, and then we can make adjustments from there and perfect it more to get ready for the practice trial, okay?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Terry Cloth cross-examination questions. You were Nano's personal physician, correct? Yes, that's true. Did you attend the University of Texoma? Yes. Did you and Nano grow up together? Yes. Is it true that Nano paid you well? Very well. Was the last time you saw Nano on October 17th of 2022? Yes. Is it true that Nano tripped on a treadmill during his MMSC examination? Yes. Did the fall concern you? No. Did Nano ever get a score below 25 on his MMSC exams? No. Nano had a bad fall in 2019, correct? Yes. Did it affect him in the long term? No. Was there ever anything that showed you that Nano could have mental problems? No. Is it true that Nano had breathing issues after a mountain climb back in 2020? Yes. Were those issues resolved after a couple of days? Yes. Was Nano's lung capacity lower than usual on October 2nd, 2022? Yes. Did you retire from your practice of medicine? Yes. Is it correct that you have no opinion of who Ace is? Yes. Is it true that you always disposed of all hard copies of Nano's medical files and transferred them to a digital private server? Yes. Did Nano's private server lock down after Nano's death? Yes. Do you have the password to this server? No. Is it true that you know someone with this server password? No. So no one had the ability to even access Nano's digital, personal, and medical files, correct? Yes. Can you verify that you lost access to Nano's private server files before you could include Exhibit 6 into his medical files? Yes. Is Exhibit 5, in your understanding, accurate and true of Nano's condition before his dive? Yes.
Okay. Any thoughts?
All right. There's a few things you really don't need that'll probably be covered in direct, like if you went to the University of Texoma. Some of these events they talked about. So I bet your questions won't be, did he trip on the treadmill? Your question would be, you testified in direct that he tripped on a treadmill, but isn't it true that you had absolutely no concern that that was an issue? See, so you'll throw them together that way. Tell me, well, the other thing I want you to look at, when he has no opinion who Ace is, I would camp on that a little bit. So you, as his personal physician, as his friend, growing up together, he wrote something that not even you can tell us what it means. He wrote whatever he wrote. You can't say what it means, who it is. He wrote something that we cannot determine because he didn't explain it. He didn't put it out, and no one can figure it out to say with definitively, this is what it means. That's your opinion, right? Again, Eubanks wins if the handwritten will is indefinite and nobody knows what it means. Then tell me why the server going down is important to your case.
Well, I didn't quite understand the cross 100% until like today, and yeah.
Okay, that's a good answer.
I thought I did, but I didn't.
That's fine.
That's all right.
That's fine. I think the server going down is a way to impeach him if he said in records that we can't access, XYZ exists. Wait a minute. Those servers, it's locked down. You destroyed everything. The only true record is there. And you can't have access to it. So you can't tell us exactly what's in there because it's there. And that's a best evidence objection, the actual record that we can't locate. But I don't know that it helps you move your situation forward. But basically, so prior to the dive, prior to getting in the submarine, in your medical opinion, he had the capacity to know and understand what he's doing when he made his last will, the one that the lawyers worked with, the one that he typed up, etc. And another area that you might want to add is you grew up together. He was loyal to you. He stayed with you. He could have hired any doctor in the world. He could have hired specialists. He could have hired, you name it. And he didn't. He stayed with you because he was loyal to the people he knew. He was loyal to the people who were loyal to him. And Alex Eubanks was loyal to him, right?
That's good.
You see where I'm going with that?
Very good. Any questions at all, Kayla? Any other questions?
Well, it's not quite about the thing I just read, but on the 26th, is the regional final, and it said all day, but is it really like all day? All day?
Yeah, it is. But you only have to be there for the competition part. Part of what extends it into the possible early evening is we're waiting for the results.
Okay. But like what time would we be possibly done? Like,
It's going to be done depending on the number of teams involved. It's going to be somewhere around 3 o'clock.
oh, okay.
Like
That's good.
3. It'll be like a normal school day. If there's a lot more teams for some reason, but we really are going to have 3 matches. We're going to do it
Mhm.
2 times, and your team will do it either twice or once. They just draw out of the hat, so you don't know. No one knows for sure. But you'll either do 1 case or you'll do 2 cases. So
Mhm.
you might not be in the last case. Well, you would be because you're a witness. So you'll need to plan on being there till 3:30. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Sound good? Any other
Yes.
questions, Kayla?
No, sir.
I just want, again, for you and Silver, for having done this the first year, I'm just so impressed with how prepared you are and how ahead of the game you are. And I know it's going to just be great when we get to this trial. So I know you're going to be very, very good attorneys and good witnesses. So we're excited to have that. Such a good seasoned group of students. It's amazing. Is there anything, Mr. Zeiger, you'd like to say before I end the actual practice?
Well, I'm going to echo what you said about how impressed I am with how y'all have progressed, how your recognition of the issues, and I think as we dig into it, you'll see. I hope you'll see more and more how it fits together and how to present the issues that you need to present. And I'll go back to just the bottom line on cross-examination. As Dean Moon said, you need to know what you're after. What do you want the jury to believe when you're through with the cross-examination? And once you have that, you tailor your questions to try to get there.
That's right.
And that's y'all are doing a really good job.
Just remember, when you're crossing, you're the star of the show. Okay, when you're directing, the witness is the star. And just keep that in mind. We want you to perform and have fun with this. Before I let you go, next week, I'm going to meet with Sterling and Nathan, just the 2 of you, to go over opening and closing statements and make sure that you're on the same page and you know where you're going with it. I will also meet with Katie and Olivia and do the same thing. Make sure the opening is clean and clear and the closing follows it. And then you will be prepared for the trial. So we got to set a time when the 2 of us can meet during the week. Okay, we don't have to do that now, but sometime on Tuesday, we got to touch bases and make sure we can do that. Any questions about that?
No, sir.
Okay, another thing I want you to do is be thinking about rules of evidence and how you will now use that in the trial, okay? Because when we practice next Saturday, we are going to focus on rules of evidence, okay? Because really the thing that's going to separate you from other teams is how well you use the rules of evidence, okay? And so we'll get more into that during the week, but just keep that in mind and be thinking through that as you practice whatever parts of this you're going to work on. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you find out, Sterling, about the 10 o'clock Saturday?
No, sir. I will have
I'm going to
to.
assume that you're on until I hear otherwise. Okay?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Well, Mr. Zeiger, could you stay on for just a minute after they leave?
Dean, I've got an 11:15. I can stay on for about 60 seconds.
Well, I'm going to let you go. Let's just touch bases sometime this weekend.
Yeah, send me an email and I'll give you a call.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.